Hi everyone, welcome to the Mind Blown Zone episode 59. This one is called The Third Option, How to Turn the Lights Back On. I'm here with Brad. How you doing, Brad?
Whoa, never better. This could be an exciting one. How about yourself?
Never better, mate. Best day of my
What do we got in
life.
store? It is. It really is, if you say so.
So far though. Okay, so got a cool bumper script ready for me to lay that down?
Bring it.
Okay. You were born into a world that handed you a story about who's responsible for your problems, who has the power, and why you don't. You accepted it because everyone around you accepted it. And so you spent your energy pointing outward, at the politicians, the system, the people who wronged you, never suspecting that the pointing itself was keeping you trapped. That's not an accident, but here is what they couldn't account for. The moment you stop looking out there and start looking in here, everything changes. The power you've been giving away your entire life comes back. This podcast is about that moment and how to make it permanent.
Love it.
So this is a part 2 of our episode 58. What was the exact title of 58, Brad?
I don't exactly remember, but it was about, how and why we were programmed to reject the truth.
That's the one. How and why you were programmed to reject the truth, right? So this is kind of like, okay, so now that you know that, here's how to turn the lights back on. All right?
Right.
So we're actually going to start with a brief summary of the previous podcast. Brad's going to lay that down. Ready to go, Brad?
I'm laying it down. Sure. So, we talked about, the Prussian education system in depth. We talked about materialism and victim consciousness, right, which is logical stuff. Matter matters, which all of that combined to cause our discernment to become disabled. And then, of course, we had the mix of fear and judgment, which is the ultimate malware that gets installed in our systems, the good old Ahriman and Lucifer stuff from Steiner. And obviously, the institutional capture, right, which is all of them run by a particular ball of entities. And they, of course, enforce each other and enforce this socially through groupthink and the kiss and dismiss idea that I came up with, right? Basically discrediting anybody who's challenging the orthodoxy. And perhaps most importantly, they make that escape hatch invisible, which is what we're going to talk about today, what I call the third option. So, but you've been socially engineered to reject and ignore the third option your entire life. And then last but not least, of course, is that they miscalculated in our past podcast, right? They didn't realize the human consciousness was going to rise up and out of the muck and mire that it's been in for many millennia, and that there's a shift, right, in the consciousness field, and it's loosening the grip of the institutional control around us. And of course, last but not least, we talked about the karmic rebound, which could take months, years, decades, lifetimes, centuries to come back, is now getting closer and closer to near instantaneous. And effectively, the more people's free will you violate, the faster the karma returns. So it's making it harder and harder for the people in control to manipulate us. Yeah?
Yep. Okay. So what we're going to take you through now is a bit of I suppose a framework, kind of like 5 levels of consciousness lenses, how each human, how we perceive the world through these lenses. And I would say that the third option, would you agree with this, Brad? It's the ascendancy through these lenses.
Well, the third option is really, 100 different potential options, right? So there isn't one third option, but it's effectively not choosing the popular options that are on offer from the establishment. That's the third option. So there's hundreds of third options. Go ahead.
So we'll go through these lenses, and then in the conclusive area, we'll really knuckle down on what we're talking about with this third option.
Yeah, yeah. And
So it's
let's do
clear.
the awareness bubbles real quick. We did a whole podcast on the awareness bubbles, but basically our summary of it was bubbles 1 through 4 is you're playing the blame game if you're in one of those 4 awareness bubbles. It doesn't really matter who you're blaming, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans or the communists or the demons or the Freemasons or the Jesuits or the Zionists. Doesn't really matter who. If you're continually pointing outward and blaming, you're trapped in one of the 4 lower level first or second option blame game.
Yeah, and that's episode 47 if you want to check it out.
47, good. So yeah, if you want to get to the 5th awareness bubble, you have to exit the blame game.
Mm-hmm.
Important. Leading up
Alrighty.
to our consciousness lenses. Go ahead.
So yeah, we got this concept, consciousness lenses, and 5 stages. And the first one is called reactive consciousness. So in reactive consciousness, there's external stimuli. Things happen and there's barely even any like processing going on. It's like independent processing and analysis and decision making. It's just like reactive, just like bing bong, bing bong. So
Exactly right.
on the Hawkins scale, which we talked about, I don't know, around about episode 14 or something like that, this would correlate with that sub 200 that we've mentioned quite a lot through the episodes. So the way you assign causation for how you feel and how everything happens in life is just 100% external. Like the way my life is because things happened out there and I am the result of that.
Right. Most importantly, I'm helpless to make a change because of these greater powers outside of me.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just a simple assigning. It's not like a simple, calm assigning of causation. It's like this blame energy. Like it's like a resentment and an anger toward these external things, and probably like even an underlying cold fury at how unfortunate you are that the universe has treated you this way.
Quite right. Best summed up if you go into the woo spheres, people, that it's the whole, is life happening to me or is life happening through me? Right. So anybody in consciousness lens number 1 is going to say life is happening to me.
Right. Which is pretty weird.
Outer world.
Pretty weird position to be in.
Well, and we were all in it, right? I myself was in it most of my life, and you probably were too. Only now are larger numbers of people starting to break out of it because of the rise in consciousness. And let me just add this real quick little side note here is that so many different ways of measuring people's ability to understand things, and that it's often given to education and IQ and intellect, and none of these things are accurate measures of your ability to assess and understand the truth. And that the one thing that Hawkins did that I fully stand by was that people in this sub 200 level were unable to discern truth from falsehood because of this external locus of causation. So that's probably the most important thing is you can have a 150 IQ but still be completely in reactive consciousness lens 1 sub 200 consciousness. Yeah?
Oh yeah. I think I know some of those people.
Yeah, I think we all do. Right?
But if they're listening, I'm not talking about you.
I was going to say they appear on our television sets every day of the week. Anyway, so
yeah, like if someone like take someone who works in like academia or something like that, right? That's like super high IQ work generally, but
right,
it's a total, like they're totally in the scientism worldview, and the scientism worldview is an external locus of causation because the way
Right.
I think. All my thoughts are the result of the movement of particles outside of me. The physical world
Chaos.
is cause.
All right. Chaos, entropy. Those are the hallmarks of materialism. So if you're a materialist, you're in consciousness lens number one, for sure. You have to be. No, there's no other sensible, logical conclusion.
Right. So outsourcing
And why is
intellectual
that?
sovereignty, cognitive dissonance, and a total unwillingness to get even near the boundaries of the Overton window.
That's the old insta dismissal filter that I've talked about before, right? Like literally, they hear something that doesn't match up with the picture of the world, the materialist picture of the world that they have, and they have to dismiss it because it can't fit in that box, right?
Right. And we would assume that anyone listening to this is not in this lens. This is just like to cover, well, if they wouldn't get this far, right? They would get to the bumper and then be like, this is total nonsense. This is ridiculous. So they get halfway through this and be like, oh, this is stupid.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, and this is by far, historically, this has been the most common group for the majority of people to be in. It's consciousness lens number one. Because that's what we were taught. All of us, bar none. Right. So you have to, if you haven't broken free from what the media and academia has been saying, then you almost by definition have to be in consciousness lens number one. Period. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that's where you are at the moment.
Alrighty. Shall we move on to number 2?
Go ahead.
So consciousness lens number 2, consideration, contemplation. So maybe one of the hallmarks of this is like a transcendence of the instant dismissal malware filter. You remember in The Matrix, Morpheus says to Neo, like, you know, if you try to help these people in the Matrix, they'll even fight you, right? Like they have a program in them, like a literal malware program running to protect the Matrix, right? And so in that consciousness lens number 1, when you try to tell people something, you really feel like you're talking to a programming. Like you're like, oh, why can't I get to the real them? Like, why can't I talk directly to them? Why is my communication being interfered with by some malware? And they say the things that they've been trained to say to protect the Matrix. But in this consideration contemplation lens, it's where you actually kind of start to break through. And I think Brad and I have both said that we're noticing this more and more in people, that they'll actually consider things. Like the filter's just like broken through a little bit. And you can say things that they once would have been like, oh, that's so ridiculous. Here's this line I heard on Stephen Colbert. And they'll actually be like, interesting. I'm not sure about that, and I doubt it, but maybe.
Right. It's almost like in lens number 1, there's no soil to plant a seed in. Right? It's just barren. And when you get into this lens 2, right, there's some fertile soil, right? You're not going to win people over right off the bat, but they're curious. They don't dismiss what your conspiracy theory idea, right? Your anti-establishment idea quite so readily. And some of them ask questions, which is, you know, a very new thing in my experience over the course of the last 3-4 years. Really, it's starting to become more and more prevalent. And I think the majority of humanity has now migrated into this consciousness lens too, as we speak. July of 2026.
So this also comes with like this development of actually being able to hear the inner voice, right? I heard on just another way of putting this, like there were YouTube videos of just floating around where people were noting that a lot of people didn't have an internal monologue. And isn't that strange? Like you can't hear a voice inside yourself, inside your head or inside wherever it is. But that is like consciousness lens number 1. Like you literally don't hear anything. But in consciousness lens number 2 that you actually can pause and consider things.
Right. Right. It's the inner voice in 1 is they remember what the experts and authorities had to say on the subject. Right. Completely drowns out their internal voice, which is saying something different. So in 2, when they get into the lens number 2, they're starting to hear that voice more and more. Like maybe Dr. Expert Authority so-and-so isn't right about this thing. Right? Maybe there's a chance that he's mistaken. And that's the inner voice speaking to them, and they're not just insta rejecting it like they were earlier.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting you say that. I was just speaking to someone yesterday, and they were like, my doctor thinks I have autism, but I'm not sure about that. It's like it's just this internal, flickering of internal consideration, like questioning the doctor. Whereas in reactive consciousness is the doctor said it.
Right. Well, yeah, that's our Prussian military education, right? We're supposed to just obey the authorities, and whatever they say has got to be right, and that's the end of it. You're going to get attention and a paddling if you don't agree with the teacher. Right? That's the conditioning we were all raised with, isn't it? Be a good little boy, Maddie. Don't question the teacher.
The paddling, you mean you get hit with a paddle, right?
Yeah. Sorry. Maybe you didn't live in that era. I got paddled a few times in my middle school era.
Well, did you ever see the show Arrested Development?
Yeah. Not many.
Do you remember in season 3 when there was like a dirty magazine called, I think it was called Bum Paddle? It was like erotic bum paddling. Yeah, you just brought all that up for me.
Sorry. You brought it up to all our listeners now. SNL.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Bum paddle. Okay. Defining characteristic, a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. This uncertainty comes in. It's like, oh, what's been going on? What have I been thinking all my life? What is real? How do things actually work?
Exactly. That's pretty much the characteristic of this consciousness lens is a tremendous amount of what can very well be unsettling uncertainty. Right? What if the doctors aren't right? What if the politicians aren't right? What if the lawyers and the bankers, whatever, right? Whatever these people that I trusted my whole life, what if they're not as right as I thought they were? That can be highly unsettling to your, present worldview, right?
Alrighty. Blaming external circumstances is still dominant, but starting to see you have some role in things, some culpability.
Right. It's just starting to blossom a little bit.
Head into consciousness lens number 3. You want to intro this one?
Mm-hmm. This one's we defined as the reorientation classification of this. So you're starting to reorient towards the inner locus of causation. But so this is going to be a small group of the population, right? I'm just totally guessing, but I'm going to say roughly 20% of the people are in the next 3 categories that are out there. But these are people that are starting to see that maybe they have something to do with the circumstances in their life more and more. And typically what happens is it is probably one of the toughest consciousness lenses to sit in, as they start to redirect some of the blame that they were pointing outwards back to themselves. So it can be very uncomfortable in this stage. It's like, well, if they aren't to blame, then I'm to blame. So people are still playing the blame game here, which is, highly detrimental to blame anybody for anything. But it can be especially painful when you start to blame yourself. And so that's kind of one of the hallmarks of this particular consciousness lens. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And in earlier discussions with with Brad, when he brought this up to me, I was actually surprised by this. I just never experienced this self-blame. I don't know why. I just got lucky or something like that. Or I was just like, I ain't gonna blame myself. But I was still like, it's all other people's fault. It's either other people's fault or not.
Right. So yeah, and you can shift through this stage relatively quickly, but there at least is that moment when you start to see more and more that you are responsible for your current station in life. Right. It's not the government. It's not the racists. It's not the politicians. It's not your parents. Right? It's not your upbringing. Right? You could certainly choose to blame all those things and then experience the effects and results of issuing that blame. But as that's starting to wear off within this consciousness lens is what I'm pointing to here. Making sense?
Yeah, maybe the way I experienced it, just so we throw enough out there so that people can relate, is like, I was just like, it's, I have to pull myself up here. Like I have to actually get serious and work properly. I have to work smarter. I have to put in a bunch of effort, and I have to be at the cause here and make everything happen. And in a way, like that's still a negative thing, because like, I guess what I did, rather than have this like resentful blame toward myself, was like I put a lot of like pressure on myself, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of just a really uncomfortable load, like weight of the world on my shoulders kind of thing, which may be another flavor of blame in a way.
Yeah, and mine was even different than that, but I think I withdrew from society pretty heavily when I got into this stage. Right, like I wasn't comfortable around the people that I was accustomed to being around, and because I could see what they were doing, and I knew that wasn't right, but I was also wasn't ready to take full responsibility for where I was at that time either. Right. So I was bringing it back on myself. So I would say I would call my period in this stage, I was just a lot of studying, reading, learning, and, quietly knowing that all these books were right. And I was just slowly, very, very slowly accepting that reality over the course of probably 3 years.
And
right?
I think something that happens in this stage is like, you kind of fall out of the political game a bit. Like in the previous two, you're like, blaming other political parties that aren't the one that you were raised in, and like wanting certain candidates to win and blaming other candidates and all weird stuff like that. But then you reach a point where you're like, oh, that stuff's like not relevant at all. That's completely inconsequential nonsense that just a certain group of people are involved in, and doesn't affect me or anyone who doesn't care for it to affect them at all.
Yeah, and that's kind of popular or more common in the older generations, like Gen X and beyond. Like the Zoomers in your millennial generation, there's a lot of generational blame, right?
Yeah,
a ton of it. Like the boomers destroyed the country and let everything slip away, and on and on and on, right? They have all the wealth. Like in America, they have like 90% of the wealth, and the millennials can't afford to rent. They got to live 5 to a two bedroom apartment and that sort of thing. So there's a ton of generational blame. So it's amazing how the government has been able to make that into, but that's what they teach in college. So what do you expect, right? But yeah.
Although, did you want to say something else?
No, I was just going to say, shaking that off is not easy.
Yeah. And although we've mentioned the side effect here, that the blame getting redirected towards self, or like putting a lot of pressure on yourself or something like that, or feeling that if you don't do it, no one else will, or something like that. Like those might be the negative side effects, but there does also come like a lot of comfortable just responsibility, like just independence, and feeling that you just like positively play a role in your life, which is great.
Right. As you get to the end of this consciousness lens, right, you come to the realization that Well, if I caused, my current situation, right, in full, then I have the power to change that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If I'm the only cause of it, then I have the power. I had all the power to get me here, then I have all the power to get me there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's really shift through it to the end of this, which this lens into the is take your power back first time.
Yeah, and I would say that course, like the course that we made, Take Your Power Back, it's very much about elevation from CL1 and CL2 to CL3. Like into CL4 as well, but like the big shift is up to CL3.
Stuff is verified. I didn't get to this too much. And certainly it someday. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about CL4. What's
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, what are people trying to be more like when they get to CL4? Matt? Integration.
Oh man, Yeshua, right?
Right? This is the be more like Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or Lao Tzu or whoever your spiritual avatar is, right? It's that being the the more loving, compassionate, kind, generous, humble, all the characteristics that we assign to the spiritual avatars. Right? This is the integration consciousness lens where there's a lot of trying and practicing, efforting and fixing going on. Mm-hmm. So it's you would say a lot of people who have spiritualized egos, right, are potentially in this stage.
Spiritualized egos.
A lot of those out there in the woo community. Lots of them.
But I think it's a good way to intro this, like trying to be like more like Jesus, because like one of the first questions you might suddenly ask when you're blossoming into this lens is, I wonder what Jesus would do, or I wonder what Buddha would do. It's like the first consideration of that, like what would be like the higher way to act here? just comes into view, like, oh.
Right. So that in a key characteristic is the reactions are gone, and now they're actually contemplating, looking at their situations in life that are causing them strife and struggle, and they're seeing what other way can I handle this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it's now, if you get into this level, it's very painful to be angry and fight and do all the things that people are doing down in CL1. Right? Those things feel very terrible if you migrate up into this level. It just feels awful. That's about the best way to describe it. It still felt awful when you were back in CL1, but it also felt normal. Right? This is the way it is. Right? Boyfriends and girlfriends fight. Husbands and wives fight. Bosses and employees fight. Democrats and Republicans fight. It's just normal. So you kind of like unwittingly accept feeling terrible in all these situations because it's normal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
When you get to this level, it feels awful.
Yeah.
Matt has a few stories. He's more recently been hanging around in this level.
Well, I wouldn't go into any personal stories on this, but I would mention that just like this is when you just feel the difference, right? When you're like, you can dip into like CL1 all the way back down to there and you're like, no, oh my God.
Right.
But you're still, there's still a part of you that's there. You're like, oh my God, like you can actually watch yourself and you're like, oh, I feel so bad. I gotta stop thinking this stuff. But there's also a part of you that's you can't even control. And you're just watching yourself do CL1 stuff. It's like, oh my God. And then you just notice that you're like, oh, I'm sick today, the following day. Oh God, now my gut hurts. So it's like this up and down that's like, oh God, I wish I could just stay up there.
Right. And you will bounce back up, but you just have to let go, right, of that thing you were doing that was causing you to be back in CL1, right?
Mm.
Anger or worry, sadness, whatever. But yeah, there's such a dramatic difference in your feeling state when you get to CL4. When you go back and feel CL1, it feels just like this is the worst thing ever. But the irony is that when you were in CL1, it felt normal to you. So basically, it feels normal to feel badly in consciousness lens number 1. That's the way things are.
Oh, and it doesn't even bother you.
Yeah, because it's normal. It does bother you, but it's become so normalized for you. Right? It's like being, if you were born in a prison and that's how you were raised inside the prison, right? They would all be normal to you. That there were captors and guards, and they served you 3 trays of slop a day. But it's awful, but it's normalized, so you don't fight it.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah. And we're kind of talking about like the transition into CL4 here. But I think, Brad, you would say that the full realization of CL4 is not this highs and lows transition period, but a constant remaining in the high, right?
Well, yeah. So we're talking about the first 3 out of the 10 bullets here, right? This is where you're working on it, right? Mm-hmm. The biggest mistake people make in CL4 is that they judge themselves for slipping backwards into CL1, right? So it's like they compound it. I call it the double whammy effect, right? They screw up, they get angry or get worried and they feel terrible. And then when they realize what they did, then they criticize and judge themselves for doing it. And so it's like compounds, right? And so there's quite a bit of this. I think it's my number 1 piece of spiritual guidance is you got to give yourself gold stars when you screw up, like way more gold stars than when you do something successfully. You have to like double praise yourself for catching yourself screwing up. And it just like takes the edge off completely. You're like, oh yeah, I screwed up yesterday. I screamed at that person and I worried about this thing for like 4 hours and I see it. And because I see it, I won't do it again. And therefore 10 gold stars from Mrs. Crabtree.
Right. So you reckon there's a lot of self-analysis in the transition to like right. An error correction. Like what did I like reflection and going, what did I do wrong? All right.
Right. You see it. You're now able to see it. You're now able to hear that inner voice that you weren't able to hear in the lower levels. And remember, the hallmark of this is you're trying to be a better person. Right? You're making a strong effort. I'm not going to fight with my spouse. I'm not going to argue with my coworkers. And I'm not going to scream at my kids, whatever, right? You're trying. It's not always easy, but you're making like a conscious effort to be more like Jesus or Buddha or Krishna. Yeah?
Yeah, I would say one of the most grinding things I encounter in this transitionary phase is when I'm interacting with someone who is not in this phase and is just in CL2 or CL1. And I'm like,
right.
This person is stopping me from being in high CL4.
Right. Yeah, that's some bowling going on.
Wait, am I in? What am I doing?
That's right. That's why compassion is going to be such a valuable commodity in the times ahead, right? Is you're gonna have to be able to assess that consciousness lens somebody's in, and you're gonna have to understand that's where they are right now, and show a little compassion instead of fighting with them, arguing with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge skill set. Not easy. Simple, but not easy.
Yeah, it's interesting how the CL1 say to CL2, like it just kind of happens, right? Like just like pop, hey, the voice came, the consideration came. But with this one, 3 to 4, I find it's like work, like effort. and that's what you're saying, right? Here, the mistake, trying, practicing, efforting, fixing. So like, how do how does that phase go? How does that stop where you're trying, practicing, efforting, fixing, and like what is the transition? Can you explain more from how to get it done?
How to get from 4 to 5? That's we're not quite there yet.
Just like how to get properly deep into CL4, like, and get through this transitionary period.
Well, CL4 is kind of what, like in the spiritual woo communities, they would start to call it, these are like your spiritual tests, right? Like the lessons you came to learn and those kinds of ideas that they like to talk about. And so you don't get through it until you pass the tests, right? So if you keep reacting in the same way over and over and over again, it's just the lesson keeps coming until the reaction changes.
Right. Okay.
So each time you catch yourself and you're right after the fact, I screwed up today. I shouldn't have done this. But right. That's when you give yourself a pat on the back. All right. I see what I did and I understand now. So next time I'll be better. I'll do better. So the effort is needed in this stage because you're still, from our course, you're shifting, and I use the terms false self and authentic self. And that now I kind of changed that language to the temporary self to the eternal self. But you're making that shift from one to the other. Mm-hmm. And the temporary self, right, is all about trying and efforting and working, right? And the eternal self is just kind of like sitting there waiting to be embraced, for lack of a better expression, right? So you've always been your eternal self. You've always been your authentic self, right? And you're slowly moving in that direction. And it's really a lot more relaxing into it and kind of understanding that, the forgiveness idea, right? You're forgiven for your screw ups, right? It's okay, right? You learned something instead of the judgment that the temporary self is constantly leveling against yourself. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's really this level is really the movement out of judgment. It's really what it is.
Right.
And so I guess we say in the bullet, the earlier stages were filled with resistance, and now you're learning to accept and allow. So that's the kind of the shift out of resistance into acceptance and allowance. And, I guess I say a couple of bullets down here, right? Like you're starting to realize that you create your own reality as an established fact. And the more you realize that, the more you say, well, somehow or another, I created this situation for myself, right? It's not the other person to blame or the other president or this politician or this situation, right? I'm creating this. I created this for myself. And so the more that acceptance is embraced, then the resistance fades away and there's less and less trying and more allowing. That's kind of the shift through this phase. And I guess this other point I wanted to make was that, a lot of people find this to be not very appealing when I explain to people that the highs and lows go away as you kind of get to the end of this phase. So, that great thing that happens to you and you're just overjoyed and excited. Oh, it's amazing. I got the new job, or I got the Ferrari, or like the trophy, whatever, right? Those things go away. That sounds, unappealing to some people, but the lows also go away. So when life isn't going your way, you don't sink down into the depths of despair. She's like, oh, well, that just didn't work out for me. Nothing I can do about it now. Might as well move on. And that's kind of the sensibility you get where you're just kind of accepting and allowing what comes your way that there's nothing you can do about it. Right.
Yeah. I do definitely notice the highs and lows like attenuating, right? Like it's not like they suddenly just disappear. They just attenuate. All right, wait, do I mean the opposite of attenuate? What's the opposite of attenuate? Detenuate? Like de-amplify? Get smaller?
I mean, attenuate.
Does attenuate go down in signal or up in signal?
I think it just means to like water it down, right? Like, so it wouldn't be, I would just say the
attenuate. That is more.
Okay. Yeah. It just isn't as sharp.
To reduce in force, value, amount, or degree, weaken. To lessen the density of, rarefy. To make slender, fine, or small. Yeah, attenuate.
Right.
I noticed man, I tell you what, like video games and movies and stuff is like so little stimulation coming through from them these days. God.
Right. You defeat the level 7 dragon, you're like, all right, well, what's next? Yeah. That's it. That means you're moving through it. What's happening is, and this is the good news that I wanted to share about that, is that those high highs that you used to have, it's now like becoming your baseline. That's why you don't get like shot up into the stratosphere any longer. When you're down in CL1, right, you're like way below where you could be. And it's only these certain events in life that you actually shoot up out of that dreadful, horrible, awful, normalized feeling that most people are trapped in. And you get to feel great for a day or a week or a month when something that you want it to happen happens for you. But when you're in CL4, that's becoming just like your normal baseline.
Mm-hmm.
You just
all right.
feel good for no reason.
You want to do these final 2 bullets? They're
I did the one you create your reality.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No, I think that covers it. I think that solidly rounds out CL4. What's CL5? Consciousness lens number 5. What do we call that?
All right. Well, I won't pretend to talk on CL5.
Okay.
Other than to say that one time I did some marketing work for a very highly regarded author. I won't name him. Not here to shame him, but like New York Times bestseller kind of thing. And he had a materialist prescription with supplements and stuff like that, and just rituals and activities that you would do, like rules that you would follow, and the promise that it would get you in the flow, right? And you would be all these things that we're about to talk about in 5. And I think I say that because I just want to mention that is a fake way to CL5. That ain't real.
Yeah.
All that stuff that you listen on Joe Rogan and stuff, like neurotropics or however you pronounce that word, special supplements and stuff, and you can do your ice baths and stuff like that. But that ain't it. That's not it.
Yeah. You can't fake it till you make it, for sure. But yeah, so that's what we called this, the consciousness lens number 5, which is called flow. And it was kind of the question you were asking 5 minutes ago that, I didn't want to answer until we got here. You say, how do you get to that flow? And, my simple short answer is grace, right? It's just kind of arrives one day. And it really is, it comes after, right? You're no longer triggered by this person or that person. You're no longer worried. You're no longer sad. You're no longer depressed, whatever. As you work your way out of all those, low vibrating feelings, the more you flow out of those, the more this flow starts to come to you. And it just comes through grace. It's just like, okay, these things don't, this person is not allowing their inner balance to be moved by events that are happening in the outer world. They're stabilizing. Yeah? Make sense?
Sure. And just let me get into this word grace. Like, actually, you mentioned a few weeks ago or whatever, and I just started to think about the word. I was like, what is that? And, one definition, like if you just look up grace on, you just go to DuckDuckGo or whatever, grace definition, all right? Seemingly effortless beauty or charm or movement, form or proportion, a characteristic or quality pleasing for its charm or refinement, a sense of fitness or propriety. But then I found that there was like a biblical definition, like God's favor toward the unworthy, God's benevolence on the undeserving, and this meaning that's in that territory of like just things being given to those who don't deserve them or unworthiness or are unworthy of them. So I was kind of like,
what terrible.
So yeah, so do you want to just clarify what you mean for all of us and me here?
Yeah, so I mean those are popular definitions, and that the first version is the academic materialist version, right? And the second is the mainstream Christian version.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Neither one are really even coming close to what it means. And what it really means, right, is a releasing of resistance. So it's like you're rewarded in a sense. In truth, you're just moving back to being your eternal self. That's really what it is, the movement back towards who you are and always have been. And that movement, it is best characterized or symbolized by the pattern man, which is, of course, in the Western world, Jesus. Right? So I was saying, this is what it looks like. This is what pure grace looks like. This is how you move through the world, right? So you're untouched by the outer reality. And that doesn't compute to 90% of the people in the world. So that's a definition that doesn't work for them. It doesn't make any sense, right? Like, I should be angry when this happens. I should be sad when that happens. I should be worried if this is going to happen, right? So it's a kind of a foreign concept, right? But the way most Christians think of it is that God, right, gives grace to the followers, the believers, right? And in a roundabout way, that's true, right? Depending on how you define all those words I just said. But in reality, if you want the real true meaning of it, it's you moving through these layers of consciousness from resistance to acceptance.
And I guess the eternal question is, can you have some grace, or is it that you either have grace or you don't?
Everybody is constantly moving through grace, right? If we weren't, we'd all be dead.
I guess you don't get the joke reference there that I made, right?
Oh, sorry. What was it again? I missed it.
There's a episode of Seinfeld where Elaine is like interviewing for a job, and just comes up the topic of grace, and like, do you remember it all?
No, I don't.
Elaine's like, well, I think I have some grace, and the woman's like, you either have grace or you don't.
Okay, right. Yeah. They're talking about a well-groomed, what's the word they used to use for that? I forget. Well-groomed, high society, well-mannered lady is one with grace.
Right. Yeah, that's where they're talking.
Walks and eats gracefully, right? Yeah. So that's a bastardization of the word for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
you reckon you can have some grace?
We all have tons of it, and it's a question of whether you recognize it or not. Right? Like, you think about all the terrible situations you've been in your life, and how'd you get out of it? Right? Like, I don't even know how I worked my way out of that, but it just kind of all worked out for me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't great when I was in the thick of it, but I came out of it all right. Like, we've all been through dozens of things like that. So you could call that grace, is that you just stop fighting your circumstances. Is really what it comes down to. Like, we're not talking about if you're like literally in a fight. Don't fight back. That's not what it means, right? The things that in your life that you're pushing against that you can't seem to fix, right? That just, your job, your relationship, your financial situation, your health, all these things you're just constantly in resistance to. If you could just accept them as they are, right? That's like one of the biggest breakthroughs you can have as a human being. I'm here. It is what it is. And more importantly, I can change, this situation. That's the most important revelation that every person can have. Nobody can prevent me from getting out of this situation I'm unhappy with. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Neville Goddard tells the best story possible. We might as well tell it. He was sent to an army camp. He got drafted for World War II. And he was like, 100% against war and killing people and everything. He was enlightened at that point. But he couldn't get out of it. So he had to go. And, he was there for like a couple of weeks, and he just, basically hated it. Went to his sergeant or whatever and said, I want to be honorably discharged. This isn't for me. And they're like, on what grounds? And he was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to. And they were like, denied. And so, he said he went back to his barracks for the next 3 weeks, and he just imagined himself back at his apartment in New York with his wife and child. And he's like, I knew that I was going to get the honorable discharge. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know what way, how it was going to come about, but I just knew it. And he'd stopped fighting, that he was stuck in the army. And like 3 weeks later, he got called into the sergeant's office. I don't know what you did, Goddard, but some higher powers than me have granted you your wish. And he was discharged honorably 3 weeks later. So the moral of the story is he wasn't in constant resistance and anger about his plight. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Totally accepted it. He accepted that where he was, and he accepted that he was going to be back where he wanted to be. Right. So that was and so whatever happened, right. He doesn't really explain how he got the honorable discharge, but he did. But that's what grace is. It's the ending of resistance.
Yeah. I've noticed a few of these in work, just when I'm just fighting a problem with so much energy, and then I finally just give up, and I'm like, well, I guess it'll just be that way or something, or I don't know. I just give up, and then just in 10 seconds it's fixed.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. Right. That's the two, pithy woo-woo statements, right? What you resist persists. Right. And the other one is where your attention goes, energy grows. Right. So the more you resist something, the more resistance you feel. And the more you resist, the more you feel. And so the exit from resistance is allowance or acceptance. And when you get into the space of allowance or acceptance, that's when the grace arrives. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And so Jesus captured it, right? And this, I can't explain it. I'm trying to explain it as best I can. But Jesus said in the Bible, he called it the peace that passeth all understanding. And you don't understand how everything got so peaceful, right? It just all of a sudden, right? And this is maybe the most important thing we say in this podcast, or at least I'm going to say, is that the stuff that was happening to you in the past, the things that set you off, got you angry or worried or sad or triggered or whatever, frustrated, those things don't go away. You understand? They're still going to happen to you. That stuff is still going to happen to you. But you're not going to react like you used to. That's the difference. And you're not quite sure why. You're just like, I don't know why. I should be totally upset about this thing, but I'm not. It's like, it happened and it is what it is. And it doesn't bother me like it used to. And that's what the flow is. Mm-hmm. Like my inner state of balance and feeling good cannot be touched by these outer events. That's what it is. And so at that point, right, we could say you're now embodying, this is the way I characterize it, you're now embodying 51%, right, of at least, right, of your true eternal self. It's like in you, right? That noisy monkey mind, chattery, complaining, blaming, shaming, worrying, arguing, frustrating, resenting, regretting part, right, is now lost total, is now has less control over you than it did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yep, there's definitely tiers of difficulty there, though.
Yeah.
Some things,
everyone's
like some things, like when you say the things that bother you don't bother you, it's like, yeah, I can check off some of those, but not others.
Yeah. Yep. So you're still working your way, right? There's no like timeline, or you'll get this one done in a year or get that one done in a month, right? It just happens when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's really down to level of being conscious or being aware, right? So, and again, this is more or less grace. It's like you can't really like practice being more conscious or aware. I mean, you can, right? But you just start to become more present, more conscious. And it's like you see these things coming, and consciousness lens number one is reactive, completely reactive, But you don't see it coming. You're unconscious. Someone screams at you and you scream right back. You don't even stop to think. And as you move up the scale, someone screams at you, it's like you see it coming. You're like, I'm being screamed at right now. Wonder what ways I can handle this that would end the screaming. Right? And you just kind of, you don't even, it's not like you plan in advance. You just, like, the perfect response comes out of your mouth and just diffuses the situation. That's how it works.
It makes me think of our man. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. Like, it makes me think of Trump. You know, like, on one hand, he seems like a moron, but on another hand, he just, like, people just get in his face and talk shit to him constantly, and he just doesn't even get annoyed.
Yeah.
Like, how does he just take all that stuff and just remain calm?
Teflon Don. Well, he knows some of this, right? Whether consciously or not. You know, he got trained in this stuff back in the 70s and 80s a little bit, right? In some of these areas, right? You look at his vocabulary, right? His vocabulary is like 300 words, you know, like tremendous and terrific, and everything he does is terrific and tremendous, and, you know, everything else. So he knows the power of words, and he knows, right? He knows that what people say about him, he doesn't let it get to him, and, you know, that's how he's made his brand, if you will.
Right. I guess he's had a lot of practice, right? And like in high society, you get, as you say, like grace training and just how to like literal training on how to do it. Not just like you're by yourself, I'm trying to do my consciousness thing. Like, he's actually got people working with him and training him on it. Yeah.
Yeah. He's had a lot of that for sure. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. And I'm not saying that this level, that there aren't consciousness levels beyond level 5 here. This is just, you know, I think there are probably hundreds of levels beyond level 5, but they're even more rarefied air that, you know, no point in talking about those because they're so rare to experience. This is really, you know, where most people would love to get into this consciousness lens number 5. Right.
Okay.
80%
so we're hitting on an hour. Or at 57 minutes. Do you want to quickly just mention these big 8 here and like probably just identify them at this point since we're on an hour, and then we'll conclude?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So these are just my inward outward stressors, right? So the inward ones I call are doubt, uncertainty, unworthiness, and regret. Right? These dominate certainly the first 2 consciousness lenses and well into the 3rd, right? There's just a ton of these things operating internally within us, right? And I don't know that they need much clarification unless you have any questions about them.
No, I think the replacement pairs is what's the most valuable.
Okay. We'll hit those then. Yeah. Unworthiness is basically the human condition as we speak right now. Everybody feels unworthy in one respect or another. The outward ones are the ones the big ones I always talk about: worry, anger, blame, and complaint. You've heard me say those 1,000 times. But these are the outward stressors, outward forms of resistance. And so moving through these consciousness lenses then, right? Worry, right? Instead of worrying about what's going to be happening in the future, the more you recognize you're creating your reality, the more faith takes over. And faith is really just, that means feeling like what you want instead of worrying about what you don't want. Yeah, you see it? Say, all right, well, it's going to be really tough, this thing that I want, but you know what? I feel like I'm going to get it, so I'm going to stick in that space. And that's basically what the whole manifesting community is all about, right? And that's the biblical verse, right? Faith in things unseen, right? That's the first one. Anger, right? You're angry at somebody, typically, who's in a lower consciousness lens than you, right? That's typically what's going on. Right? There's 2 people arguing, right, in different levels of consciousness. And so the one that's really angry, right, doesn't understand why the other person can't see things the way they can see them. Right? It's obvious, right? This is notorious in the world, right? So that's where most of the anger comes from. And when you recognize that the person you're angry with is in a lower state of consciousness, right? It's not their intelligence. It has nothing to do with anything else other than they're in a state of consciousness where they cannot yet perceive what you can perceive. And so when you recognize that, then your anger turns to compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't say, oh, look at that. Look what that idiot did. He's such a moron, right? You know, you see it a whole different way. That guy's stuck in a debased state of consciousness, and he had no other choice but to behave that way. Right? So that kind of, you know, right in line with anger is blame, right? And then its correlate, right, is understanding. So you, instead of blaming them, you understand what, you know, the state that they're in. Now you can better understand why they're doing or saying the things that were, you know, originally pissing you off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Complaint goes, the correlate to that is appreciation, of course. So there's always, I mean, if you want, you can sit around and think about 1,000 things to complain about in your life. And the more the more things you find to complain about, the more things you're going to find to complain about. That's the way the universe works, right? You draw more evidence to yourself of what you're complaining about. So but the correlate is appreciation. So no matter what you've got to complain about, if you can go back to the basics, well, I have plenty of air and water and food and shelter and safety and people who love me, right? There's a lot of things to appreciate in your life. And the more you recognize those things to appreciate, and this is what I write in my book about my backpacking trips, right? Like you get done with a week of backwoods backpacking, and like trash cans and toilets are like the greatest things ever invented by mankind. Right? Because it's tough to go to the bathroom in the woods and carry out your waste and the whole 9 yards. So just silly examples, but you really, you know, a hot shower and a soft mattress. I mean, it's like these things are just amazing to you after you've been sleeping on the ground without showering for a week. Anyway, that's the difference. Where's your attention? What you not unhappy about are all the amazing things that you already have in your life. All right. I got to keep it moving here. So doubt, right? So when you're doubtful, right? It's awful. It's awful to be in a state of doubt or uncertainty, right? And the correlates to those are clarity and confidence. And the clarity is, yep, I'm the creator of this thing. So that way, why would I doubt myself? If I'm the creator, why would I doubt myself? And so as soon as you get rid of that doubt, you move into clarity. Like, I can achieve this. This is something I can do. And same thing with uncertainty, right? From uncertainty, you move to confidence. It's like, I'm the creator. I can do these things. Therefore, I'm confident. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unworthiness goes to quiet self-recognition. In fact, you are worthy. You're not more worthy than everybody else, right? But you're totally worthy. And so again, it's just coming back to realizing that it's an internal locus of causation, not an external. And lastly, but not least, from regret to growth, right? So instead of looking back at the situations in your life that you regret, you see them in a new light. You think, well, that was an opportunity for me to go in a different direction and grow somehow. I'd learned something. I won't make that same mistake twice. You know, that kind of attitude, instead of just regretting your past errors and mistakes. So those are the replacement pairs.
Right. So I guess that brings us to the conclusive area, where we said we were just going to finally conclude on what the third option was. And just to be clear, the first two options are, I think you agree with this, is 1, materialism, and 2, exoteric religion, typical mainstream religion, right? First two options, yeah?
That's right. Yep. Those are the two popular options that are presented as okay to choose from in the establishment.
And the third option is to work your way through what we just talked about.
Right. And you can get this lesson from all different kinds of things, like philosophically, idealism and metaphysics, right? There's something that you can't find in universities anymore. In religious context, right? There's Gnosticism, there's Hermeticism, there's New Age, right? There's, Theosophy. There's thousands of different schools of thought. The New Thought is kind of my favorite of those bunches, right? That's where Neville and Francis Scovel Shinn and a lot of other popular Joel Goldsmith and a lot of other popular teachers, kind of came from that era. But they're all part of that. That's why I say there's 100 third options. They're all not popular because the establishment presents them as bad or blasphemous or whatever, heretical, occult, all of these terms they throw at them. So that's the third option. Doesn't really matter which one it is, just be outside of the two establishment choices. Yeah.
Right. And is there anything more you want to say on this, or shall we just move to the overall conclusion of the podcast?
Only to say that, we're going to do a whole podcast on this. I told Matt about it the other day, but realize that nothing is more important than feeling good. It is the most important thing. Now we're going to do a whole podcast on exactly what that means. We'll just drop it, I guess, for now. We're out of time, so we'll do a full podcast on it. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to feel good. And nobody can argue with that. But in fact, almost everybody does argue with it and justify and defend why they don't feel good, which we'll get to in the next podcast. That's, if you want the ultimate answer, that's it. You should be doing everything at all times to feel good. That's not selfish.
Right.
That's the best thing you can do for everybody.
And that is going to be episode 63. And what you're going to notice going forward into the podcast after episode 60 is that they're all going to be focused on very positive stuff. Like a lot, like not here's explaining the problem, but all like, here's how to do this particular area of life really well. All right. So episode 60. Go ahead, Brett.
I was going to say, we're going to stop reacting to the garbage that's constantly being strewn at us from the establishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And episode 60 is going to be called It's Time to Take Our Attention Off the Establishment. All right. So that's going to be the conclusive episode of kind of this first 60 episode season. All right. It's like, okay, we've identified the problem. Time to take our attention off it,
right,
and forward into 61, 62, 63 and onward. It's like, okay, here's some new stuff.
That's right.
So definitely check out episode 60 and 61 because it's going to be transitionary ones into this new mode.
100%. It's going to be exciting. Things are getting good. Real good.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for taking us through these 5 lenses, Brad. Brad's the one who came up with that framework. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks everybody. We'll catch you on the next podcast. Thanks, Matt.
See ya.